Hello and welcome. This follow-up story to my previous video on the Buga Sphere begins with a perfect circle and ends with a question we might not be ready to answer. The first piece of this puzzle isn't metal, it's resin. The University of Georgia carbon dated a residue collected from the Buga Sphere. The result, 12,560 years old. Whatever touched that orb, whoever built it, handled it, stored it, left a trace older than every recorded civilization on Earth. Now, rewind to the impact. To recap, on March 17th, 2025, Buga, Colombia, at 2:47 p.m, a metallic sphere ripped through the power lines, dropped into a farmer's field and sat there like it had chosen that exact patch of earth. By all rights, the fall should have ruined it. Dents, cracks, seams, something. Instead, investigators find perfection. A flawless orb, 30 centimeters across, seamless. No welds, no joints, no obvious entry points. Just smooth, cool metal carved with symbols that don't belong to any human alphabet. Linguists tried everything. Not hieroglyphics, not cuneiform, not linear A, linear B, rongo, ongam, runes, nothing. Pattern matching software saw no language structure. Neural networks trained on every known script called it noise. Scientists brought it into the lab. X-rays showed 3 concentric shells, nested like Russian dolls. Between those shells drifted 9 microspheres, suspended in empty space. No wires, no magnets, hanging there as if gravity had lost its claim. At the very centre sat a chip no one could identify without destroying the object to get at it. The sphere weighed 16 pounds the day it was measured. 7 days later, 20 pounds. 2 weeks, 22 pounds. No material adding, no chemical reaction, no explanation. Physics has rules, but the sphere wasn't inclined to follow them. Then someone at MIT asked a different question. What if we stop thinking like humans? Classical computers failed. Pattern recognizers failed. Linguists failed. The team pivoted to quantum. Here's the difference. Your laptop checks options one at a time. A quantum computer holds many possibilities at once, living in superposition until probabilities collapse into a solution. It doesn't comb the beach one grain at a time. It becomes the beach and then tells you which grain you wanted. They fed the sphere's engravings into IBM's Condor processor and linked it with Google's Sycamore quantum cloud, building a lattice no single machine could manage. At midnight, they pressed go. 3 hours later, the outputs stopped, looking like nonsense. The first sequence matched Planck's constant to 15 decimal places, the number that sets the scale of quantum mechanics, the smallest tick of energy in the universe. Another sequence mapped the golden ratio, the spiral that crops up in hurricanes, shells, galaxies, and DNA, nature's recurring blueprint. The fine structure constant appeared too, the number that describes how light and matter interact, the substance of atoms' stability. The engravings weren't words, they were equations. They were the constants that hold the universe together, etched with precision beyond our instrument's best measurements. But numbers were only the first layer. When the team mapped the deeper patterns, the output shifted from constants to frequencies, resonances, signatures. The kind you don't see, you hear, if you could hear gravity sing. They've seen these patterns before. In 2015, LIGO detected gravitational waves, ripples in space-time from colliding black holes. The frequency profiles of those waves are as distinctive as fingerprints. The sphere's engravings match those signatures perfectly. Not similar, identical. as if the surface had been printed with the sound of black holes colliding 1 billion years ago. Layer 3 grew stranger. Orbital resonances appeared. The clockwork relationships that keep Jupiter's moons locked in rhythm and maintain the gaps in Saturn's rings. The patterns even correlated with orbital ratios of exoplanets discovered only last year. Some called it a cosmic Rosetta Stone, others went further. If you wanted to store the operating system of space-time, said Dr. Sarah Chen of Caltech, this is how you do it. Not a message, not a manual, the architecture itself, compressed, carved, encoded. The source code of reality in metal we can't reproduce. Simulations followed. If the engravings were frequencies, what did the nested shells do when played? In the models, those shells didn't behave like inert material. They created a field, an electromagnetic bubble that bent light around itself. Defense labs have chosen metamaterial cloaking for years, routing photons the way water flows around a rock. The sphere's 3-layer design surpassed those efforts by a generation. The 9 microspheres are floating inside, not random, their positions mapped to a golden ratio spacing and Fibonacci alignments, nature's favoured patterns of stability. Feed in a frequency into the model and the microspheres set up standing waves that amplified certain harmonics, like a tuning fork that remembers every note that it's ever heard. Photonic processing, said Dr. Michael Torres from MIT's Materials Lab after rerunning the simulation a dozen times. It's computing with light. The team tested acoustic inputs in simulation too. Viral videos claim Sanskrit chants made the sphere vibrate. Do the math and it's not magic. Certain frequencies generate resonance cascades through the nesting structure. The simulation says the sphere can receive and transmit. It can store fields, not just data. Gravitational signatures, electric patterns, magnetic harmonics. Information written as physics, not files. Caltech's most unsettling model fed the sphere its own encoded frequencies, the ones carved on its surface. The result? A tiny, localized distortion of space-time. Microscopic, but measurable. Not with exotic alloys or rare elements, but with aluminium layers and precise geometry. At this point, names like DARPA started appearing in the email headers. Requests for non-disclosure circulated. 3 universities put in formal bids for access. NASA asked for samples, but wouldn't say why. Meanwhile, the Colombian farmer said the grass around the impact site had been killed in a 30-foot circle, not burned, but desiccated, as if every drop of moisture had been pulled out of every blade at once. If the sphere is a device, it's not a device that stores pictures, it stores reality. Then the engravings stopped behaving like equations altogether. Dr. Lisa Park at Harvard took a different approach. She overlaid the glyph patterns on star maps. Not our night sky, but deep space. Andromeda, the Magellanic Clouds, ancient globular clusters older than our sun. 3 sequences aligned with known fast radio burst sources, FRBs, those split-second flashes of radio waves from distant galaxies that baffle astronomers. 2 sequences matched specific catalogue entries. 1 pattern matched nothing we've catalogued yet. It pointed somewhere between Andromeda and Triangulum, where our telescopes see only darkness. The quantum system suggested the pattern wasn't pointing to empty space. It was pointing to an object faint enough or strange enough to evade detection so far. Think about Voyager's golden record, a metal disc carrying our address, our music, our mathematics, and a map of pulsars that could guide any finder across the galaxy. We carved our identity into copper and sent it into the dark. What if this sphere is the same, but from elsewhere? A probe with a return address written not in radio frequencies, but in the resonances of gravity itself. Look at the overlay and the idea clicks. These aren't letters, they're positions, a galactic coordinate system keyed to pulsars, nature's most precise clocks. Navigate by pulsars and you can cross a galaxy. Any civilization capable of building this would know that. Jose Velasquez, part of the investigation team with decades of meteorite experience, put it simply, we keep listening for radio waves. What if they don't use radio? What if they send spheres? Whispers started in collective forums. Tokyo, July 2025, a private auction house allegedly catalogued another orb, smaller, 8 inches in diameter. Same seamless construction, similar but not identical patterns. Leaked photos showed similar shocks, no seams, nested shells, symbols that trip the brain's error detectors because they don't fit what we've evolved to recognise. If 2 exists, then there is likely more. If there are more, they weren't accidents, they were placements, deliveries. Imagine what's inside, not just equations, but technologies that patch the holes in our current physics, dark matter, dark energy, quantum gravity. Dr. Chen laid it out bluntly, even 10% of this could trigger a civilizational leap. What does that look like? Energy grids that draw from quantum vacuum fluctuations instead of burning fuel. Propulsion that curls space-time instead of pushing against it. Medical scanners that probe probability waves to detect disease before it manifests as damage. These aren't fantasies floating free of math. The constants etched into that sphere already outpace the accuracy of our best instruments. The models hint at devices that reshape fields, light, magnetism, gravity. And then there's the weight anomaly, 16 pounds to 22 without mass added. One theory, the sphere interfaces with zero-point energy fields, tapping the quantum foam and turning the geometry of vacuum fluctuations into tangible effects. If that's true, it's not just a message. It's a machine communicating in the only language that never lies, mathematics embedded in physics. The ground truths. March 17th, 2025, Buga, Colombia, power lines went down. A seamless metallic sphere impacted a field owned by Juan Velasco. The grass within a 30-foot radius died, not burned, dehydrated, no residual radiation detected. The sphere measures 30 centimetres across. X-rays from 3 independent labs show 3 concentric aluminium shells, 95% pure, with trace elements not matching any standard alloy. Between the shells, 9 microspheres hung in stable suspension. At the centre, a chip, likely silicon or something analogous, too small to retrieve without destroying the structure. Weight measurements taken across multiple days and devices rose from 16 to 22 pounds with no discernible cause. The engravings, when processed by linked quantum systems, map to universal constants with extraordinary precision, then to gravitational wave signatures, then to resonant orbital patterns consistent with known celestial mechanics, some discovered only recently. Star map overlays indicate alignments with known FRB sources and pulsars, with at least one coordinate pointing to a yet unidentified deep space location. Simulations suggest the nested shells and microspheres form a resonance amplifier capable of manipulating electromagnetic waves and possibly generating localized space-time effects when excited with specific frequencies, especially those encoded on its surface. A second, smaller sphere may exist in private hands in Japan. This remains unconfirmed, but institutions are treating the rumour seriously. The University of Georgia carbon-dated a resin residue linked to the sphere's handling environment at approximately 12,560 years old. Multiple institutions, academic and governmental, have requested access of samples. NASA will not comment publicly. Everything else, the Sanskrit videos, the cosmic intent, the why, is still speculation. Stand back and the choice is narrow. Either someone on Earth built an impossible object as the most elaborate hoax in history, complete with physics that outperform our best measurements and simulations, that hint at field manipulation we can't replicate, or we're holding proof that we're not alone, and that whoever sent this understands reality at a level that makes our current science look like cave paintings lit by a match. What is it? A data capsule? A tuning fork for reality? A star map? A probe checking whether a species can read the operating manual of the universe? A key? A beacon? A warning? The quantum systems gave us the what as constants, resonances, coordinates. They can't tell us the why. Here's one final detail that sticks with everyone who's seen the lab notes. The farmer's daughter sang near the sphere the night it fell. He swears it hummed back. The note, 432 hertz, the frequency some musicians romanticize as cosmic, which is meaningless by itself, except that in the simulations, frequencies near that range trigger resonance cascades through the nested structure. Maybe that's a coincidence, maybe not. The object doesn't deal in our stories, it deals with patterns. So we follow those patterns, we test carefully, we verify ruthlessly, and we accept that we might be at the edge of something larger than our species has ever faced. A puzzle handed to us not in words, but in the mathematics of existence itself. If there's a second sphere, it will surface. If there are more, they will be found. And when they are, the first question won't be who sent them. It will be, are we ready? Because some doors, once opened, can't be closed. And somewhere in a lab, a flawless orb is waiting for the next frequency. Thank you for watching.